Sylvie Goulard, deputy for, well, a member of the European Parliament in Brussels and, of course, in Strasbourg for France, although I know you think of your role as being European as opposed to simply French. We're living through very interesting times, as the Chinese might say, about the euro crisis. And it seems to me that one of the cures being suggested is a deepening of the European institutions. What do you think of this as a solution? I pose the question because one of the criticisms of the European Union has always been the democratic deficit between the electors and the institutions. Sorry, quite a long question, but...
Well, first of all, I mean, when you're in a crisis and you want to go deeper, it might not be the right message. Now, the important thing is not only to deepen the European integration, but to strengthen the democratic elements in it in order to make the decisions we have to take collectively, above all in the Eurozone, accepted by the citizens. Because the gap between the ones ruling in Europe, be it in Brussels or even in the capitals, and the citizens is widening in a very worrying way. It's more a matter of quality, and in my opinion, it has to go beyond the usual debate on deepening Europe or not. Well, that's the reason why we wrote a book with Mario Monti on the future of European democracy, where we have tried to look at it in a very long-term perspective, using a little bit the categories of thinking of Tocqueville when he went to America and looked at the young American democracy to draw some lessons from it. And we are absolutely convinced that the key question is to, as you've said, I'm a French MEP. Of course, I feel very French, but I hope that I can work with others for with one goal. It's making legislation for 500 million people. This is to look at Europe as a whole, as an entity, and not only at national states cooperating.
But when you look at the European Parliament, I mean, there are literally hundreds, more than 700 MEPs. And I would suspect that very few of their electorates actually know who their MEP is. I mean, how do you actually close this particular democratic deficit?
Well, first of all, one would have to ask itself, what should be the role of an MEP? Is it just like a local or locally elected person? Is it like a national parliamentarian, or is the role of an MEP another one? And many people just compare the type of work we do with the type of work that is done in the national framework. And in my opinion, it's a mistake. You cannot do what you are supposed to do if you just look at it from the local perspective. Let's take an example. I'm working at the Financial and Monetary Committee of the European Parliament. It is important for me to go to the City of London. It is important to travel to Berlin. It's not just by discussing at home that I can find the right solution and produce or contribute to produce the right regulations for it. So we should, first of all, stop just thinking in the categories of the nation states and really think, what do we want? What should an MEP be? Maybe we can do better than what we, but very often people are expecting from us something that we cannot deliver if we do properly the job we have been elected for, which is a paradox.
Let me ask a final question. We are in the Eurozone crisis at the moment, which affects everybody, including countries, members of the EU who are not in the Eurozone. Let's assume that the Eurozone crisis is solved. How do you see the European Union 5 years from now? What sort of institution will it be?
Well, it's very difficult to say. I'm just a modest MEP. I do not have powers to look in the future.
How would you like it to be?
Yeah, well, I hope first of all that we have tackled the main issues that are now pending, and it's not only a Eurozone crisis, it's also the crisis of some of the member states. And in some member states, the national parliament has voted budgets in the last years or in the last decades without taking into account the commitments of the country. The competitiveness policy has not been pursued, etc. So we have to look at the crisis in the national member states, of course, to improve the way Europe is functioning. I'm absolutely convinced that there is a need to strengthen the democracy for the Eurozone plus, I would say. It means the 17 countries that are right now in the Eurozone, but to remain open to the ones like Poland, for example, or Sweden, or the UK, not the UK, Hungary, that because they do not have an opt-out, the UK has an opt-out, is not obliged to join the Eurozone. But in my opinion, it might sound a little bit crazy, but they should think twice. Because I don't know what the consequences for the City of London are going to be if the UK sticks to its current position, which is to refuse to see that the Eurozone is going to evolve. And if the UK makes the choice to remain in what is a minority, it will not have the influence it pretends to have. If the UK wants to join, it will play inside the Eurozone a much bigger role than it can do it from outside.
Sure, better to be in the club than outside.
I think so. Of course, it's a sovereign decision of the British people.
We'll see what happens. Sylvie Goulard, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.